I'm here to explain all of non-monogamy. Just kidding. But I will be sharing 3 models that I think are useful, the labels that I use and why, and I've got some hot takes. Not super hot, they're like white girl spicy. But first, it's dark in here. Where are we? We're in the poly-discourse hole. Don't worry, I know my way around. First, you're gonna see a Cartesian plane. On the x-axis, we graph how well you want to know your metamors, that is, your partner's other partners. If you want to get to know your metamors, you are going to be on the kitchen table side of the graph. On the other end, we have compartmentalized poly, which is the type where you don't meet your metamors. Both of these exist on a spectrum. On the extreme end of the compartmentalized side, I put don't ask, don't tell arrangements. Those are the people who are like, yeah, you can see other people, but just don't ever let me find out about it. Where it's not just that you don't want to know your metamor, it's you don't want to know about your metamor. Personally, I don't think it's a great idea because sometimes you're gonna run into a situation where there is a mandatory tell, like if your partner gives you an STI and you have to share that with somebody else. Less extreme are the people who are okay knowing about their metamors, but not very much. My boyfriend once dated a woman who didn't like to hear my name spoken aloud. She was pretty compartmentalized. Some compartmentalized people might be okay hearing about their partner's other partners, but they don't ever want to meet them. In the center is where I would put the one courtesy meeting people. People who want to meet their metamor once and then never again. They don't want to be friends, they just want to check a vibe. And speaking as someone whose partners tend to be attracted to crazy, and I say that with myself included, I understand wanting to get a vibe check. Some people are more kitchen table than that. They might want to share holidays or have regular polycule dinners. They might want to develop an independent friendship with their metamor. They might even want to date their metamor. It seems to lead to drama. I know y'all are gonna do it anyway. I support you. Just DM me the hot goss. Polydrama is the best drama. Succession has nothing on our people. All of these things exist along this spectrum, and on the extreme end, I would put people who want to live with their whole polycule, which couldn't be me. But I respect it. If you live with your polycule, Godspeed. You don't need me to explain any of this to you. Just comment for engagement and tell me how you're doing. Have you read any good books lately? Are you getting enough sleep? How's your mom? Compartmentalization and kitchen table both have pros and cons. Some people find compartmentalization leads to less drama, less feelings of jealousy. Some people find that kitchen table leads to fewer feelings of jealousy. I used to be very kitchen table, and then I had some metamors that I fucking hated. I'm still kitchen table, but less than I used to. Kitchen table is a lot easier when you like the people at your kitchen table. On the y-axis, we have hierarchical versus non-hierarchical, which is about who has decision-making power. In hierarchical non-monogamy, people have some partners with more decision-making power than others. Usually a person has a primary partner who has the most power, and then secondary and tertiary partners with less power. In non-hierarchical poly, nobody has any decision-making power over anybody else. That doesn't mean all of your partners are equally important. If you have a wife of 10 years and a Tinder date, your wife of 10 years is probably going to be more important to you. But in non-hierarchical poly, your wife of 10 years doesn't get to make any rules about what you can and can't do with your Tinder date. That's just between you and your Tinderoni. Hierarchy is not intrinsically about any of these things. Those may all be symptoms, sure, but it's really about who can make decisions that affect other partnerships. For example, my boyfriend and I are hierarchical, and there are certain Buddhist stories called Jataka tales that we only read together. That's a rule we've made. So if anybody else wants to hear stories of the awakened one's past lives, you can't. We're primaries, and we already decided. Which isn't to say that non-hierarchical people never make an agreement to keep something special just between two people, but in a non-hierarchical structure, those agreements can flow any which way. If we were non-hierarchical, my boyfriend's partner M could say, okay, well, Lily got Jataka tales, but I want Shakespeare. I don't want you to read Shakespeare with anybody else. But because we're hierarchical, M doesn't have the standing to do that. I get Jataka tales, I get Shakespeare, I get Dr. Seuss, I get the complete works of David Foster Wallace if I want. I actually hate David Foster Wallace. And again, these things exist on a spectrum. Extremely hierarchical couples might even have things like vetoes on each other's partners, or just a lot of rules, as opposed to less hierarchical couples who are still hierarchical, but try not to have as many rules and they try not to exercise their hierarchy as much. It's a spectrum on the non-hierarchical end too. On the far end, you have relationship anarchists who apply philosophical and political principles of anarchy to their relationships. Relationship anarchists haven't been great at coming up with a cohesive definition, but they generally talk about opposing hierarchy in all of its forms, and often will say that they don't even privilege their romantic relationships above their platonic friendships. But then there are a lot of non-hierarchical people who do privilege their romantic relationships above their platonic friendships. There are also non-hierarchical people who have made big life decisions, like having a kid or buying a house with one or more of their partners, and they might agree to give that partner or partners precedence on issues relating to, say, the kid or the house. That's not exactly hierarchy because it's not enforcing decision-making power on other relationships, but it is going to affect those other relationships. There are even some non-hierarchical people who use the language of primary, secondary, tertiary to describe their relationships, but they mean it as a level of importance rather than a power structure. It's confusing down here in the discourse hole. You could get lost without a guide. There's a lot of debate between hierarchical and non-hierarchical people about who's doing poly better. I remember a non-hierarchical person saying, "I don't believe in hierarchy because it creates second-class citizens." And as a hierarchical person, I was like, she's kind of right. If you're in a hierarchical structure and you're not at the top, there are gonna be some issues that affect you that you don't get to vote on. You can say what you want and hopefully you'll get it, but if what you want is at odds with what the primary couple wants, it's not gonna go your way. That can suck. And on the other side, I have a metamor who says, there's no such thing as non-hierarchical poly. There's just hierarchy you know about and hierarchy you don't. First time she said that, I was like, ooh, the take is so spicy, it's burning my mouth. But she's not the only person I know who's had that experience. If you're dating someone and they tell you they're non-hierarchical, but you notice that every time there's a conflict between what you need and what their other partner needs, the other partner gets prioritized, you're probably gonna feel lied to. That also sucks. The people I know who are happiest in non-hierarchical relationships approach it with an almost religious fervor, because otherwise hierarchies will form naturally. I don't mean to sound like a Jordan Peterson acolyte, but consider the lobster, I guess. There probably are lobsters down here. Lobsters live in caves and crevices. A hole is kind of like a cave. But they also live in the ocean, and a discourse is not an ocean. So probably no lobsters. But there is hierarchy, and it's fine to be hierarchical. It's also fine to be non-hierarchical. It's fine to be kitchen table. It's fine to be compartmentalized, but you have to be honest. Don't advertise your poly with whatever label you think will sell the best. Advertise with what your partner is actually gonna get. We also do a real disservice to ourselves in the non-monogamous community by siloing off and demonizing each other, because we have so much to learn from people who are practicing non-monogamy differently. Early on, I struggled because one of my boyfriend's partners wanted to do something that I wasn't comfortable with, and I felt almost like personally attacked. And it was my non-hierarchical friends who were able to help me see that even though I didn't like how my metamor was behaving, she wasn't attacking me, she was just advocating for herself. On the flip side, I've had non-hierarchical friends come to me when they think that there might be a little bit of hierarchy getting injected into their relationships, because they know that I'll recognize hierarchy and that I won't be afraid to call it out, because to me, that's not like a terrible accusation or a dirty word the way that it is to some people. That's my hot take, is anywhere on here is fine. Like I said, it's white girl spicy. And I'd plot myself here. My boyfriend and I try to minimize the impact that our hierarchy has on our other partners, but when the needs of our pairing conflict with the needs of another pairing, we prioritize each other. I like to get to know my metamors, but after having been burned really badly a few times, I don't invest in those relationships the way that I used to. I picked up all of these terms at a poly discussion group that I used to go to. I'm pretty sure that they got them from Franklin Vo, but I'm not going to cite him because he's a shitty person. I choose to live in a universe where all of this came from a nice polycule in suburban Maryland. You can't change my mind. Coming up around the corner, we have chart number 2, which is from the book Polysecure, and it charts sexual exclusivity on the y-axis and emotional exclusivity on the x-axis. Up here, we have monogamy, where people are both sexually and emotionally exclusive. Still in that quadrant, but less exclusive, we have monogamish people, who are mostly monogamous but may make exceptions, like having the occasional threesome or saying it's okay to kiss other people, just don't go any further. Even less exclusive, we have polyfidelity, sometimes called closed poly, where there's a romantic relationship with more than 2 people, but whoever is involved has agreed not to add anybody else. In the high emotional exclusivity, low sexual exclusivity quadrant, we have swingers, who are generally emotionally exclusive but engage in sexual activity with other couples, individuals, or groups. A less exclusive, we have open relationships, where 2 people are seriously committed to each other and then have other more casual sexual or romantic relationships with outside partners. Now, when we cross the y-axis, it's like the love line. Do you love multiple people? Not just do you have sex with them, but are you in love with multiple people? If so, you're on the low emotional exclusivity side, and if not, you're on the high emotional exclusivity side. In the low sexual exclusivity, low emotional exclusivity quadrant, we have hierarchical polyamory, which we've already touched on, and even less exclusive, non-hierarchical poly. We also see solo poly, which means you don't want to get too enmeshed in any of your relationships and you avoid getting into couple-centric relationships. Solo poly people often say they're their own primary partners. In the corner of the quadrant, we have relationship anarchists, who are once again the most extreme on the chart, and they love it. I've never met a relationship anarchist who didn't love being special. But even relationship anarchists aren't as special as the people in the high sexual exclusivity, low emotional exclusivity quadrant. Poly-intimates are people who only have sex with one person, but engage in romantic activities like going on dates with other partners. They might even have a romantic partner who they're co-parenting with or married to, but be sexually exclusive with somebody else. And to cap things off, we have poly people who are also asexual, so they might be dating and forming emotional bonds, but not sexual ones. Honestly, people in that quadrant aren't represented much in the poly community. I just included them so that the relationship anarchists would know that there was someone even more special than they are. Just kidding. But if you are in that upper right quadrant, say hi in the comments, let me know how you're doing because you seem cool and I want to know what you're up to. Really, all of you are cool and I want to know what all of you are up to. Anywhere you want to be on this chart is great, even if you want to be monogamous. We can still hang out. I'll tell you all the poly gossip. I'd put myself here, right on this corner of open relationship. Because my boyfriend and I are only in love with each other, so we describe ourselves as open rather than polyamorous. But I'd put us on the edge because we develop close friendships with our other partners. My boyfriend's partner M is also his best friend. I text my partner J literally every day. Those relationships are important to us, even if they're not romantic love. And because of the importance of those relationships, sometimes it feels like we have more in common with hierarchical polyamorous people than we do with people who are in open relationships where they treat their outside partners much more casually. So you may be asking, Lily, if you're in an open relationship rather than a polyamorous one, why do you tag your videos with words like polyamory? Why do you sometimes use the label poly? A lot of people use poly as an umbrella term for non-monogamous. And there are a lot of shared resources and shared spaces between polyamorous people and people who are practicing other types of non-monogamy, except for swingers who have their own community and culture. My videos are relevant to people in both open relationships and polyamorous ones, and I want the algorithm to love me. Before you go back to the surface world, let me tell you about one more model. It's not a chart, but you could visualize it as a spectrum, descriptive versus prescriptive. Descriptive means you look at what you're doing and then you find a model to describe it. Prescriptive means you decide on a model and then you fit your behavior to fall within it. For example, my boyfriend and I are descriptively romantically monogamous, which means we are only in love with each other, but that's not because it's a rule. It's not prescriptive. We are open to falling in love with other people, it just hasn't happened yet and we don't think that it's likely to. So we want to communicate that to our other partners so that they know what to expect going into a relationship with one of us. Prescriptive would be if he and I made a rule that we weren't allowed to fall in love with other people, which is a pretty hard rule to maintain. Any rule that's about feelings is tricky because they're subjective. A rule that's like, you can't take your girlfriend to my favorite restaurant, either you take her to the restaurant or you don't. When it comes to feelings like love, they're so subjective that that it might take you a while to even realize that you're breaking the rule, or you might end up in a really futile argument with your partner about whether the rule was actually broken. So if you're going to set a rule or a boundary or an agreement for that matter, it's best to set it about something that is quantifiable outside of someone's own head and heart. White girl spicy take. So when you're plotting yourself on those first two charts, think about, is this prescriptive or descriptive? If you're compartmentalized, is it because you don't happen to know any of your metamors and you don't really see a reason to meet them, but if it was important to your partner, you wouldn't mind changing? Or are you compartmentalized because you never ever want to meet a metamor and you'd be upset if somebody asked you to? Thank you so much for joining me in the discourse hole. Please gather up any belongings you brought with you. Don't leave any trash behind. Lord knows we have enough trash in the poly discourse already. Comment below what you think of these models and which of these labels applies to you, and I'll see you on the surface next time.